Tudo bem? Mais um PodMoney que eu faço com meus amigos, sócios e um futuro sócio e sócia. Bem, na verdade todo mundo quer saber, como ganhar dinheiro investindo corretamente nesse mercado imobiliário. Por isso que eu insisto que o mais importante é o quê? Descobrir a verdade e assim desmistificar o mito nesse setor. Nessa sessão a gente vai receber Alex Zdanov. Ele é proprietário de uma enorme construtora aqui nos Estados Unidos. Nós chamamos Between the America's Largest Home Builder. Ele é um especialista com vasta experiência em diversos mercados nacionais nos Estados Unidos. Vai compartilhar com a gente estratégias que são comprovadas. E assim que ele vem maximizando os nossos retornos sobre investimento, famoso ROI, Return on Investment. Então vamos aprender um pouquinho mais. Quais segmentos oferecem melhor eficiência em termos de risco e resultado? E como a gente determina a viabilidade desses novos desenvolvimentos. E assim fica a dica de como tomar decisão eficiente e ter a iniciativa de participação nessas, que têm sido as melhores oportunidades de investimento e estão ao nosso alcance. Hi Alex, and first of all I'd like to thank you very much to accept my invitation to come here and be part and share your experience and knowledge. So Alex, please tell us about yourself and your experience in real estate. And which national markets have you operated in? And which regions do you focus the most currently, and why?
Hi Nando, thank you for the question. My name is Alex Zdanov. I'm a CEO of Arden Collections. Our company is specializing in development, marketing, and operating institutional-sized multifamily properties. We've been in business for over 27 years. We've developed properties nationally. Among the states where we operated successfully was Arizona, Illinois, Florida, Texas, Colorado, Wisconsin, Michigan, and etc. In the past 4 or 5 years, we're doing a lot of business, primarily in 4 states, which are Illinois, Texas, Florida, and Colorado. As I said, we're specializing in institutional-sized properties, meaning those are the properties that are 250 plus units. Primarily, we're building 3 types of property, either 3-story walk-up, 4-story elevator, or 4-story so-called Texas donut property, which is properties that are with 4 to 5-story centralized garage, and the property wrapped around the garage. We are a vertically integrated company. We employ over 100 people. We own and operate our marketing company, our management company. We operate multiple fully licensed GC companies, and obviously we own a development company, and in some states we operate through our architectural firm. Like I said, we've been in business for over 27 years. Only in the past maybe 5-10 years we've built over 3,000 to 4,000 apartment units. Currently we're developing about 1,200 units in 3 states, in Texas, Florida, and Illinois. We also own and operate thousands of units which are fully stabilized, creatively refinanced, and we own and operate them along with our equity partners. That's in short about our company.
So, in simple terms, which real estate segment do you believe has the greatest efficiency in terms of risk and results?
As I mentioned in my previous answer, we are specializing on Class A institutional-sized properties. And the reason why we specialize on Class A institutional-sized properties because this is the safest probably segment of real estate development. Historically, Class A multifamily properties are run at about 90 to 95% occupancy. So primarily Class A properties have better groups of tenants, with higher credit scores and more stated job and an average income of from $60,000 to $100,000 a year. So our deficiency is very low on Class A properties, and our occupancy typically stays pretty high. Considering that factor, it's considered to be among institutional investors the safest bet in real estate industry. If you check portfolios of large corporations like REITs and Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, BlackRock, and so on, you're going to notice that 60 to maybe over 60% of their portfolio consists of preferably Class A and sometimes Class B institutional size of multifamily properties. And the reason for that is that those are the safest properties. They typically stay very, very highly occupied. Institutional size Class A properties are called a hedge against the inflation. And you noticed in the past several years, with inflation to be at the highest level we ever seen, how the rents on those properties have reacted. So you've seen some kind of obscene increase in rents, like 20% a year, 25% a year, and so on. This is the reason why majority of large institutions are holding these properties in their portfolios, because those properties are easily adjusting to any inflation in the market. And considering their historical high occupancy, so the risk in investing in those properties is either you're getting more cash flow or less cash flow. But even if you don't get on those property any cash flow, you have such a large reduction annual on the mortgage that the value of your property, if let's say sold in 10, 15, 20 years, is going to grow exponentially. Especially with the rent increase and the rent growth, the value of those properties are increasing as well. So you have kind of like a double dipping. Annually, you have a substantial deduction on the mortgage. You have annual increase in rent that constitutes to a higher value of the property every year. And on top of that, if you're getting the cash flow out of this property, so you are in the perfect situation. Now, majority of financial institutions like banks, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD, they love this type of properties because they're safe properties and they're providing very high leverage mortgages with very low interest when you come in with institutional Class A properties. So that's why we consider this segment of the business is the safest segment of the business.
An important point: how do you decide whether to sell or operate? And if you operate, for how many years and why?
The decision for either operating or selling the property primarily lies with our investment groups. So the way our operating agreements are set up, that the decision for disposing the property or holding it again would be a decision of our equity investors. However, prior to completion and full stabilization of each property, we as a management and as a sponsors are providing our recommendations to our investors. So if at the time of sale or refinancing of the property, the interest rate is pretty low, and we're all anticipating for the rates to come down. So if any properties will start construction this year, we're looking at full stabilization and repositioning of this property in about 3 years from today. So being cautiously optimistic, but optimistic, knowing the cyclical economy in the United States, we anticipate that in 3 years from today, the interest rates are going to be substantially lower. So if we are right with our predictions that with low interest rate and very high leverage from financial institutions that I mentioned in my previous answer, like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or HUD, we can potentially refinance the property and cash out, if not all equity, but majority of the equity, and then still keep the property and operate it with substantial positive cash flow. And due to depreciation, this cash flow is going to be tax-free to our investors. In this particular case, we're making a recommendation to our investors. Let's get it refinanced with, let's say, 30-35 years fixed interest rate, if the interest rate is that good. And we are providing our projections, okay, what are the cash flows the investors can anticipate. We provide them with cost segregation, which is accelerated depreciation, so they can get additional write-offs, plus this cash flow would be potentially tax-free, and we're informing our investors how much of their original equity investments will remain in the property. So if it makes sense from them and they can make double-digit on remaining cash in the property with no taxes, so typically our investors are very excited about it, and they're accepting our recommendation. However, if the interest rate remains pretty high, or we're offered some kind of a crazy price for the property, and investors will decide to dispose the property, then we'll sell the property, and then in this case, investors will get their gains at the capital gain treatment, because this is a sale of operating property. So that's how we pretty much making a decision whether to sell or hold, and who is making this decision and what parameters we use.
Please let us know what studies do you undertake to determine the viability of the new development.
And it's a pretty good question. So again, I want to go back to the original subject, what type of properties we're developing. We're developing large institutional size properties. In order to get those properties financed, we have to prepare very detailed and very lucrative reports so that our lenders and our equity partners will feel comfortable to join such a project. So one of the major reports that we typically prepare is a market study, that we're doing it prior to us making the decision on purchasing the land or not, to understand what kind of rental rates we should anticipate now, what kind of rental rates we should anticipate in the future when the property is going to be stabilized. We are running the study for operational costs, so we're comparing to our competitors and see what kind of operational costs they have, 32%, 35%, 37%, 40% annually. Then we study it, okay, for a couple of line items like insurances and real estate taxes. We're hiring third-party large firms, okay, they're evaluating it for us, okay, and preparing their own studies and giving us comparison analysis, okay, what kind of real estate taxes we should anticipate in the future, because it's a large portion of operational cost. And we're also ordering a study for the absorption. So we're trying to understand how many units of this particular property we would be able to rent monthly. We're also ordering a study that suggesting to us what kind of unit mix we're supposed to use at the property. Depends on our competitors and a pipeline of other projects that are being in the process of approvals. So if there are too many one bedrooms but shortage of two bedrooms, that we're trying to build more two bedrooms, and vice versa. Plus the sizes of the units are also determined by third-party analytical firms. Beside that, and like again, we typically order those studies from top maybe five largest firms in United States, kind of like Integra, CBRE, GLL, Marcus & Millichap, and so on. So these firms have very large database of projects that are being delivered in this area, that are being developed in this area. The projects are in the pipeline, being approved. So they provide us with very accurate studies for each and every subject that we order from them. On top of that, we're doing a lot of other studies, okay, like environmental studies, endangered species studies, like tree study report, like we're doing geotech, we're doing the drillings on the site to make sure that we're not going to face any kind of soil conditions, okay, while we're going to be already in construction. Traffic studies, fiscal studies, like fiscal impact of our property on the community and on the city and the village and so on. So there are numerous of studies are being done, and we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars before we produce our offering memorandum and share it with our lenders and equity investors, because in our offering memorandum, every line item and every number, okay, that we're presenting are supported by third-party analytics from nationally very well-recognized firms. So we are very careful with each and every study, with each and every approach, because it's extremely important to be prepared for any kind of market changes in the future, because it takes about 3 years for us to build this project and stabilize. So we have to know who are going to be our competitors, not today, but who are going to be our competitors in 3 years. We have to know what kind of expense ratio we should anticipate in the future based on the current real estate taxes and insurances and so on and so on. So there are numerous of factors taken into consideration in order to come up with a very conservative offering memorandum. And if we see this is a very profitable project based on all our conservative studies, okay, then this project gets a green light and we present it to our lenders and our investors.
And my last point, ask you if you can share some examples of successful projects that your company has completed and how those projects stood out in terms of return on investment.
In the past several years, as I mentioned in my previous answer, we have completed, way over 1,000 of units. One of the properties that we completed, it's 314 units in Oak Brook, Illinois, which was originally appraised by the lenders, by third-party appraisal, ordered by our bank, and it showed the exit value of about $103 or $104 million. By the time we complete the project and by the time we stabilize it, and by the time we refinance it with Fannie Mae, it was appraised for way above $130 million. This substantial increase in value was attributed to increase in rents and reduction in cap rates, plus the quality of the property that we delivered, because our Arden brand properties are not only the fancy name and beautiful interior of those properties. The Arden brand provides numerous of programs that allows us to tap into untapped income streams from the property that increases our cash flow and that attributes to our higher internal rate of returns and higher net operating income, and attributes to a higher value of the property. So this is the reason why Arden branded Arden of Oak Brook property got appraised for substantially higher value than was originally anticipated. Another property that we completed is also in Illinois, was Warrenville, Illinois, is 364 units. As I mentioned before, the Oak Brook property is fully stabilized, and so is the Warrenville property is fully stabilized. Right now it's, I think, running at about 96-97% occupancy. So Warrenville property was originally appraised at about $111 million by the lenders. Pretty much the same situation by the time we completed this property and we refinanced it slightly over a year ago. It was appraised to above $140 million. And again, original rental rates were projected about $1.95, and we end up with almost like $2.12 a foot, and that attributed to a much higher NOI, plus we had a lot more collection on income from Arden brand and from Arden branded programs, and that allows us to reach much higher NOI, and consequently, okay, we got a much greater appraiser that allowed our investors, okay, to cash out substantial amount of money out of this property. The latest property that we're finishing and we start occupancy next month, it's Arden at Grand Prairie. It's a Grand Prairie, Texas. It's 318 units property, which was originally appraised by the lenders in north of $60 million upon completion, and recent appraisal by CIBC Bank, okay, that was ordered. I believe the appraisal company was Cushman and Wakefield. It was appraised at above $90 million because our rents were anticipated at $1.53, and right now we're leasing this property close to $2 a square foot. So as you can see, even right now with the cap rates, okay, they're being compressed, okay, because of the interest rate. And if they originally were anticipated at $4.50, $4.75, and right now they're at 5.25, 5.5, with a huge rent escalation. These properties are still appraised at substantially higher value, even though the cap rates have been compressed. So that's why we're hoping, okay, that in the future, if the interest rates are going to go down and the cap rates are going to go down, we could potentially anticipate much greater values that we're projecting right now in our offering memorandums. But those are only like 3 examples of the recently over 1,000 units of completed properties that we anticipated in different periods of times, okay, when the rates were great, when the rates were okay, and then when the interest rates are probably the highest, okay, in the history that we've seen. Thank you, Nando.